We are live now.
नमस्ते। मैं सुजीत शर्मा आज अखिल भारतीय विद्यार्थी परिषद की तरफ से आप सभी का माई एनईपी के इस कार्यक्रम में फेसबुक लाइव के इस कार्यक्रम में आप सभी का स्वागत करता हूं। और जैसा कि आप सभी को पता है कि राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति के केंद्र सरकार द्वारा स्वीकृति दिए जाने के बाद से ही विद्या भारती ने इस राष्ट्रीय शिक्षा नीति को जन जन तक पहुंचाने के लिए, पूरे देश में पहुंचाने के लिए, व्यापक स्तर पर पहुंचाने के लिए एक राष्ट्रीय पहल का आयोजन कर रही है। विद्या भारती माई एनईपी 2020 कंपटीशन के नाम से एक नेशन वाइड एक कंपटीशन का आयोजन विद्या भारती कर रही है। और उस कार्यक्रम के संबंध में हम लोग अनेक प्लेटफॉर्म के माध्यम से, अनेक अनेक माध्यमों से ढेर सारे कार्यक्रमों का आयोजन कर रहे हैं, जिसके सीक्वेंस में ही आज का फेसबुक लाइव है। और हम पर डे एक फेसबुक लाइव करते हैं जिसमें समाज के किसी विद्वान द्वारा और एजुकेशन पर अच्छा समझ रखने वाले किसी विद्वान को हम इनवाइट करके उनके विचार को हम माई एनईपी के प्लेटफॉर्म पर सुनते हैं और देश भर के लोगों तक अपने विचार को लेकर जाने की कोशिश करते हैं। तो टुडे वी हैव a very distinguished speaker. We have Dr. Shakila Shamsuman. She worked as OSD, New Education Policy in the Department of Higher Education, MHID, and also the nodal officer of the flagship scheme of National Mission on Teachers and Teaching. She has been the secretary to the committee to draft National Education Policy. Prior to this, she held senior positions in 12th Commission, 12th Plan, and MHRD and Joint Advisor Education Planning Commission. Her core areas cover education planning and policy making, teachers education, ICT, enable learning, and distance learning, and inclusive education. Her academic career spans over 39 years, 9 years as a lecturer in the University of Mumbai, 16 years in IGNOU, and over 14 years in the Government of India. She holds a PhD in education, gold medalist from University of Mumbai for her master's degree, PG diploma in distance education, and degree in law. She has to her credit a number of articles in international journals and book contributions. She has been a member of several committees for the preparation of plan documents and reports on various aspects of education. She has delivered keynote addresses at several national and international conferences. So we are delighted to have you with us, ma'am. And without taking your much time, I would like to invite our distinguished speaker, Dr. Shakila ma'am, to address us. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Sujit, for your kind words of introduction. And thank you to the Vidya Bharati Group and the ABVP and Mr. Sanjeev and all others who are there behind the scenes for inviting me to this particular session on my NEP to spread awareness among every person in this country on the recommendations of the National Education Policy 2020. As all of you are aware that the National Education Policy 2020 is the third among the education policies that this country has seen and the first in the 21st century, which seeks to address the challenges of bringing about changes in the education system. My session, of course, in today's half an hour, the limited time that I have, is to focus on reforms in higher education as envisaged in the NEP 2020. But I would like every listener listening to these particular talks on the NEP, which is being organized by the ABVP with the Vidya Bharati set of institutions, to understand that NEP 2020 does not really look at the policy, look at education in segments. It has seen education in a single continuum, starting with the early ages of age 3 and going on into higher and technical and professional education. So in a certain sense, while the considerations of looking at the reforms from a particular vertical is only because of the paucity of time, I would like every person who is trying to understand the NEP to understand that it looks at education in a continuum and to understand the synergy and the interconnectedness between early childcare education and from school education to higher education, and also the embedding of ODL systems, open and distance education, as well as vocational education, and the challenges that we have in adult education. Now, in higher education, let me come to the focus within the limited time that we have in this Facebook Live session to talk about the transformations that we are looking at in higher education from the point of view of the students, from the point of view of the academic changes that we're talking, the curricular changes, from the point of view of the faculty, and particularly the higher education institutions, as well as the aspects relating to technology in education, research, and the regulatory system. I'll try to do that in the best within the time possible. Now, on the academic programs, today we are having silo-based or what we call discipline-specific higher education programs. So we hear of terminologies that I'm doing a BA program or a BCom program, BTech program, MBBS program, Bachelor in Agricultural Science, Bachelor of Pharmacy. What we have realized that today knowledge is a very porous and permeable aspect. It is no longer that it is silo-based. And if we continue to have an education system which promotes discipline-based education, we will not draw on the richness of the knowledge of multidisciplinary education. And that has led us to the reason why we need to promote holistic multidisciplinary education. The second reason why we recommended that we should move away from silo-based education is we are, as students, not really geared for only looking at a particular discipline, because then it becomes very myopic or short-sighted. All disciplines actually draw strength from each other, and the student also has different talents and capabilities. So we cannot really put all students into watertight compartments of saying you are only good at sociology or only good at economics or only good at science or mathematics and so on. The student has an ability to maybe learn sciences along with languages, along with music, along with the sport, along with some other talent. Human beings are created by the maker in a manner by which we have different capacities and capabilities. And even if we don't use all these capabilities, firstly, we have a limited exposure to things that happen in the world. Second is, we don't actually flower ourselves or learn our entire potential. I often say that this particular report of the committee, that is a draft NEP 2019 and subsequently which got accepted by the government and which became the NEP 2020, has based itself on learning within 4 pillars as per the UNESCO report of 1996, which said it is learning to know, that is knowledge based, learning to do, which is application based, skill based, learning to live with others and to live together, that is coexistence, and learning to be, to allow all human potential to be maximized. And therefore, we cannot therefore say only learning social sciences, only learning technology, only learning agriculture is desirable. So the first major reform in the undergraduate program is the 4-year multidisciplinary holistic program, which will allow all undergraduate students to choose from a variety of subjects cutting across all disciplines of social sciences, agriculture, pharmacy, languages, music, performing arts, sports. All these can be taken by the student, and the student has the freedom to do this over either a 3-year or a 4-year period. This is a major shift from what we are currently used to, single discipline and only fixed 3-year undergraduate program. We have allowed for multiple entry and multiple exit so that students can leave after first year and still get a certificate, leave after second year, still get a diploma, leave after the third year and get what he calls an ordinary degree. And if he completes the 4-year, that is a full bachelor's in multidisciplinary education. And if it is with research, then the person can even go directly to do the PhD. But if it is without research, we'll have to do a 1-year master's before going in for the PhD. So the flexibility in the 4-year undergraduate program with modular structure and multiple entry and exit with modified master's program, and therefore the entry to PhD also getting modified, is the first major change that we talk in the higher education space. This change, though it seems as a single reform, is a major shift because higher education institutions will have to start opening departments. Higher education institutions should be able to allow students to choose from other courses from other institutions, can allow students to take online courses, can allow for massive open online courses, ODL systems. All this has been brought about in the 4-year undergraduate program. So the first landmark transformation in the education, that is in higher education, is this 4-year program with lot of flexibility in the mode of learning, the type of courses, the duration of the program. And to make all this possible, we have said we will create an academic bank of credit which is customized to every learner. My academic credit bank will not be the same as A, B, C, D or somebody else's. It is unique to that student because I may have learned, let us say, sociology and maybe a subject in engineering and maybe music and maybe a particular sport. I may major in 2 disciplines. Someone else may take up mathematics and maybe take up humanities or some language. So each student will have a separate kind of an academic bank of credit. Now, this is important because we are moving towards from a structured system to an open system which provides for flexibility, because in the very first chapter in the introduction, where we have outlined the cardinal principles of this policy, we have laid down a sentence to recognize, to firstly recognize and identify and nurture the unique potential of every child. And what we have done today in our education system is that we have made all students like robots, all of them thinking alike, not being able to have innovative thinking, not promoting critical thinking, creative spirit, the scientific temper, the spirit of inquiry. Whereas as individual students, as a young child, you see a child, the curiosity is different, the interest is different. But when the person has come out of the education system, the person is no longer able to think independently. The person has become so structured in the way of thinking that the student does not develop the capabilities to handle different situations. So we have focused on the 21st century skills of collaborative learning, of teamwork, of communication skills, of having a spirit of cooperation when learning together, and promoting cognitive and critical thinking, so that the application of knowledge rather than the memorization of information becomes important. That would help the student to assimilate what he or she has acquired in the learning process, and therefore the student is actually empowered to handle the changing situations. Change is the most inevitable reality of today, and that change is taking place so fast because of the interventions of technology. Technology has become the greatest disruptor, and you have an onslaught of technology which brings about artificial intelligence, big data, machine learning, robotics, and so on, which is challenging the human capacities. And therefore, the ability of the human being to actually use these kind of technological advancements that are taking place would require not just knowledge-based learning, but critical thinking, application of that knowledge, ability to adapt, to handle stress. These are the kind of capacities that we call as normally the 21st century skills. So the undergraduate program in the higher education institutions will undergo a lot of changes. We have said that there will be an academic bank of credit, and to ensure the equivalence of these courses, a national higher education qualifications framework will be created so that there is a seamless mobility across courses, across institutions, and across modes of learning. This will be the major chunk of the change. Now, in this, the students also will be provided optimal learning environments by providing the right kind of support that is needed, not just for the academic support, but for the mental well-being, the psychological well-being, the physical well-being. Because when you say a well-rounded, holistic individual, the individual should have good health, should be fit, should be mentally alert and agile, should be able to have a spirit of understanding variety of things that are happening around, and gain from that and leverage that for the optimization of his or her own potential. We are living in a highly competitive world and in a very globalized environment, and we need to therefore empower students through this kind of a multidisciplinary approach to actually make them cope up with the changes that are taking place in the society, the varying needs of the economy and the industry, and also achieve excellence in research and innovation at the global level. That is where the first change is being taking place. Now, on the faculty, we have said that all these changes would take place only through the vehicle of the faculty. Faculty are motivated, but they need to be energized and they need to be made capable. Firstly, we need to understand that teaching as a profession is very, very significant, because they should be the ones who are respected world over. And India also, as a country, we have placed a huge respect for the position of the guru. The person who is transmitting knowledge is seen as the highest role that is being performed. This same Indian concept of the guru is not really done its bit in actually translating it on the ground by giving the respect to the teacher as a profession. That has not taken place, or is not taking place, in the current scenario. But world over, you will find that universities actually respect the position of the teaching positions and give them the right kind of service conditions. So in the policy, the vehicle of change that will take place and empower the students is the faculty. And for the faculty, we have said that we will provide the right kind of capacity building programs. We will give them the kind of academic freedom to decide what are the teaching learning methodologies that they would like to use to instill in their students the right kind of values, the right kind of capabilities, the right kind of knowledge application, so that they are able to bring about that much needed transformation in their roles when they come out of the higher education system. For this purpose, we have said that we will have a very rigorous probation system with an extended tenure system, so that there is accountability, provide for their training, provide for an assured career path, so that they are able to lead towards academic leadership positions. An assistant professor can aspire to become the head of the institution, and at the same time give them that kind of autonomy so that they can bring about that change we are talking about in the 4-year undergraduate program. So we have kept the learner at the center, focused on the teacher and the teacher's service conditions and the enabling environment and the ecosystem. And as far as the higher education institution itself is concerned, we have said that they need to be empowered. And for this, we have said higher education institutions can either decide for themselves whether they would like to become a research-intensive university or a teaching-intensive university. It is a goal that the institution has to set for itself. And in the policy, we did not want to have this idea of having a very varied nomenclature. We say central universities, state universities, deemed universities, affiliating universities, unitary universities, private universities. Instead of calling them, then we have the brand institutions like the IITs and the IIMs. We said all HEIs are to be called only as universities, because their purpose is to create and generate knowledge, and not only be knowledge producers, but also create new knowledge through a body of research. And the roles of teaching and research should be seen as two sides of the same coin. Currently, there seems to be a feeling that research is a different activity and teaching is a different activity. No, they are two sides of the same coin. And at undergraduate education itself, we want to nurture research. And for that purpose, we have also talked about creating the National Research Foundation, which will not only provide a scope for multidisciplinary research, which will provide for enhanced funding for research, but will also try to see, can we make our students research oriented at a very young age at the undergraduate level itself. So the NRF will also be a game changer, which will empower our state universities and other universities with bringing about an interface not between the education, the research laboratories, and the industry, so that more patents and more innovations are created for us to make a global mark. Now, the ODL system and the higher education, one of the quantitative targets that the NEP 2020 has envisaged is currently our gross enrollment ratio, that is the number of students in proportion to their population in the 18 to 23 age group, is currently standing at something like 26.3. And we have set a target to reach 50% by 2035. which means we are almost going to double. Currently, it's about 38 million or so. We are going to almost double that in the coming 15 years. For this to be achieved, we have emphasized that not just the face-to-face education, but also the open and distance learning, the massive open online courses, as well as vocational education will have to be strengthened. So there will be an expansion of ODL system, of vocational education. All these will not be separate from the multidisciplinary education, but will be embedded within it. But the channel of entry may be from the ODL system or maybe from the vocational education, and all this would be mapped beautifully within the National Higher Education Qualification Framework. We have also envisaged that the ODL system will be providing not only quality programs, but will also provide good quality teacher education programs. And teacher education has come in for a lot of changes with the 4-year B.Ed program, integrated multidisciplinary B.Ed program, which will be offered only in multidisciplinary environments, and all standalone teacher education institutions, we would like to see them closing down and moving towards multidisciplinary education. Now, on the regulatory system, there are two aspects. One is the internal governance of a higher education institution. We want empowered higher education institutions with energized faculty, with vibrant student community participating in all aspects of the student of the community of that particular institution or the life of that institution. But we should also have an empowered board of governors, which would be comprising of educationists to reduce any kind of external interference, and which will represent the students, the teachers, the industry, the civil society, and so on, to make their own institutional development plan and decide on the trajectory of where that institution should go. Would you want to become a teaching intensive university? If so, what all additional programs you want, which new departments you will create, what type of collaboration you will have, what would be the research activities, which would be the, and as because of internationalization, can we have student mobility, faculty mobility, institutional mobility? These all will be decisions to be taken by the empowered board of governors to be created in all HEIs. This is as far as internal governance is concerned. And before I go on to regulation, let me address a concern of equity and inclusion in higher education. We are all aware that as part of sustainable development, it is not enough to only provide for the education of a certain cross-section of the society. It is education for all. It should embrace all sections of the society, whether they come from the marginalized, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, minorities, people living in difficult regions, aspirational districts, women, children who are there in vulnerable situations, children with disabilities, urban poor. We have called that as the socially and economically disadvantaged groups. And we have said that all the strategies that are possible by setting up gender inclusion fund, by setting up special education zones, providing enhanced scholarships, not only in public institutions, but also in private institutions, providing reading rooms, providing other facilities such as regional languages, material in regional languages, so that we may be able to provide education to all sections of the society. Language should not be a barrier, region should not be a barrier, disability should not be a barrier, and all cross sections coming from the socially and economically disadvantaged groups have greater opportunities for educational participation, and their participation levels will also reach the national average of the high, what we call as the gross enrollment ratio. Currently, they are less than the national average, and we are aspiring to bring them so that there is a sustainable society. This is the goal of the learning pillar, of learning to live together and to live with others. You will have to have sustainability, otherwise inequities within the society will bar the average and will not allow for a sustained growth and an equal economic development of the country. Now, on the regulation part of it, and let me also add over here that technology, right now also what we are doing is, because of COVID, technology acceleration has taken place in education, but as a policy itself, we have accepted that technology has a role in improving the quality of teaching learning, making good quality material available to all cross sections of the society. But we need to address this by creating a new body, what we call the National Education Technology Forum. And in online education, we have looked at the issues of digital divide, access to digital devices, poor internet connectivity, and appropriate content, particularly in regional languages, which is very, very critical, because the preeminence of English, while it is being accepted, is there. We need to understand and respect the plurality and the diversity of Indian languages and allow these languages to flower. And in this policy, we have said higher education can be offered in a language which is the regional language for the first time, moving away from undergraduate programs which are confined only to English medium of instruction. Now, on the regulation part, we have set a principle of separating funding, regulation, accreditation, and standard setting by creating a new umbrella body called the Higher Education Commission of India. The UGC, the AICT, the NCT will all get subsumed within this new architecture, regulatory architecture, which we envisage to be light but tight and not over-regulated like we currently have. But we'll have 4 independent verticals for each of these functions: the National Higher Education Regulatory Council, the Higher Education Grants Council, the National Accreditation Council, which can subsume NAC and other accrediting bodies, and the General Education Council with the professional standard setting bodies. The principle is that these 4 functions are separated so that there is no conflict of interest. At the same time, each of these functions are carried out in the most effective manner. To make all this possible, we would have to have stakeholders coming together and not looking at implementation in an overnight manner, but in a phased manner, with the appropriate support coming in from both the Government of India, the state government, the higher education institutions, the faculty, and the students working together. And for that, we have said we assure 6% of the GDP funding for education. And to make this possible, strengthen the existing body that we call the Central Advisory Board on Education to take forward the implementation. But I would end by saying that policies are vision documents, forward-looking and progressive by nature. But it is not for someone else to implement. We all need to do our bit as a parent, as a student, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a leader, as someone who is there in the system, because working together only policies can become a reality. I'm sure that each one of us, and particularly this group which is moving around with My NEP's idea of taking NEP to the ground, and just as we did the consultation from the ground level, I hope the policy also gets understood by all people on the ground, and each one does their bit to ensure that the NEP 2020 becomes a reality in the coming years. And it will not take place overnight. It will take place in phases, because changes in the education sector have to evolve, and preparedness has to be there, bothly of the parents, the students, the teachers, the institutions, and we all need to move together to make the NEP 2020 a reality. I am extremely happy that I was invited by the ABVP and the Vidya Bharati set of institutions, and thankful for this opportunity to share my views on the reforms in the higher education sector as part of these Facebook sessions. Thank you.
We are also thankful, ma'am. We are also very much thankful to you, because you spent around 30 minutes with us. And I can say, after hearing your whole speech, I can say this session is very valuable for us. And as you put out here, the main key points of the national education policy, you put out 4-year undergraduate program, multi-level entry and exit, and you, as you mentioned, the gender equality education fund, and inclusive nature of this policy. I think the key points of this policy, as according to me, inclusive nature of this policy, gender education fund, higher education commission of India, all the major points you put out here. This session will be very useful for us, and all the listener who whichever is watching and listening you, that will be very beneficial for us, ma'am. Thank you so much again and again. We are blessed to have you with us. And before closing this today's Facebook Live session, I would announce an announcement. Tomorrow we have Professor T.V. Kattimane, sir. T.V. Kattimane, sir, is a Vice Chancellor of Central Tribal University of Andhra Pradesh. Friends, please stay tuned at 6 p.m. tomorrow. He will speak on the topic National Education Policy 2020, Indian Knowledge System. And again, I thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much on the behalf of National Education Policy Organizing Team, and thanks to all the audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.